Hello and welcome to the second video in this series on creative coding. We're going to be making our first sketch today, writing our first code, and that's quite exciting, our first ever code. To get started, we're going to go back to our web browser. Last time you might have chosen Firefox or Chrome or Safari. I'm going to go back to Chrome again. And we were using a website called Open Processing. You might remember we created an account. Let's hope you can remember the login details. So I'm going to go to Open Processing again. And since it was yesterday or the day before that I first logged in, I'm now logged back out again, so I need to sign in again. And make sure you use your own login details, not mine. And you should be logged in. You'll remember that we hadn't created any sketches and it told you that there were 0 sketches. I've actually done a few. So mine says I've created 48 sketches, don't worry about that. Okay, so let's create our very first sketch. Let's go to create a sketch and click on it. Click. And you might remember we're taking to a new view with some example code that's provided to us. We're not going to use that, and we're not really going to talk today about what that code means. So to get started, what we'll do is we'll wipe their code, and the same here. What we do is just select it and delete. There. Now, one thing that I've done to make learning to code even easier is to create a little extension for open processing called Simple, to make things simple. So what you do is, on the right hand side there's a list of libraries. If we click show all, it'll show all of them, and at the bottom there's something called Simple.js, and we click this to enable it, so you should see a little tick. So it's just a little library that makes things easier for us. We can then, once that's enabled, we can make that all go away. In fact, if we click those 3 dots, that'll make it go away. Now what we're looking at is a view of the code that we're going to be editing and writing. Now there's a few things on here already and I didn't delete everything. So let's talk about them. So this little bit, so it's worth thinking about these two as two sections. This is the first section and this is the second section. In this section called Setup, we write instructions to help set things up. We might put in there instructions for setting the background color or the size of our canvas or other things which we can come to later. So that's in the setup. Where we put our instructions for actually doing our drawing is in the second section called Draw. Now there's a bit of writing and there's curly brackets and things. Don't worry about those for now, we'll come to those. But for now we just need to know that there's a section called Setup and a section called Draw. And in Setup we put instructions for setting the environment up, almost like choosing your canvas and creating its size. And in Draw we write instructions that will actually do our drawing and create the shapes and patterns and choose colours and so on. So I've actually written that simple extension to do a lot of the setting up for us, so we don't need to learn about that today. So what we will type is type simple here and put 2 little brackets and a semicolon on at the end, and that's all we'll need to do in setup, and that will go away and set things up in a very nice beginner friendly way. I've done all the hard work for you, so you don't need to. So you might be asking yourselves, well, what are all these brackets? Again, we'll come to those in a future video, don't worry about them for now. If you're really keen, the thing to note, the thing to kind of know is all our instructions will end in a semicolon. So that's a little bit like an English sentence ending in a full stop. These instructions end in a semicolon. It's a way of telling the computer that's the end of that instruction, and anything that happens next is the next sentence or the next instruction. Okay, so that's the bit set up. Now the exciting bit. So in the draw section, we're going to write our first instruction to draw a shape. Now a circle is probably the easiest fun shape that we can probably think of. It's a simple shape. I like circles. Everyone knows what a circle is. Now, what do you think the instruction for circle is? Well, if the language designers, if the people who made this kind of programming language wanted to be obscure and difficult, they would have chosen a name that wasn't obvious. But actually a lot of this code is designed, believe it or not, to be read and understood. So you won't be surprised that the command, the instruction for drawing a circle is circle. So let's try that. Circle. There you go. But it won't run just like that. We need to provide this circle with some information. If I said to you, go and draw a circle, you might look at me puzzled and think, well, where? How big? You need a little bit more information. So we need to provide this circle instruction with a little bit of information. And that's what those brackets do. Those brackets contain the information we're passing to that instruction. So let's put those brackets there, and then we'll say, put some numbers in. We'll explain what they are later. If you already know, you might have guessed what these numbers are, but if you haven't, don't worry, we'll look at them in the next video. If you already know, these are the location and the size. So 400, 300 are the coordinates of the location, and 300 is the size. But don't worry about that today. Today we're just going to focus on the circle instruction. And remember, we've put a semicolon at the end to finish the instruction, to say that's the instruction. Now we think we've written our first code. Let's see if it works. Can you remember how we run code? We go all the way up to that play button, the one that looks like a music player, and we click it to run the code. Ta-da! That worked. You've just written your very first code. If you've never coded before, you've written your first computer program, and it draws a lovely yellow circle with a beautiful outline in the middle of the canvas. This is called a canvas, by the way, the area that we draw on. Let's go back to the code. So that was not too difficult, was it? I know there's a little bit of messing about with setting up, but we don't have to think about that again for a long time. And then we've got the draw section where we put our instructions. So just to repeat the important point, the circle instruction draws a circle, and we pass it some information about how to draw that circle, how big and where. Okay, so have a go yourself, and that should work for you. Also, we learn a lot by experimenting and trying things and changing numbers and changing the order and just messing about generally. But it sounds like we're messing about, but actually it's the best way to learn to code is to take some code and then change it and see the effect. So let's try changing this third number and see the effect that has. It says 300. Let's try 100. And we'll run the code again. Now it's going to run this code, the updated code, the code that we've changed. There you go, a smaller circle. So you can start to see how this third number is the size of the circle. If If I did 10, you can imagine that's really tiny. Yep, that's quite tiny. You might not be able to see it, but it is there. Let's do a really big one. Let's say 500. What happens there? That is huge. Should we go bigger? Let's try 900. That's interesting. So you can see that it's overgrown and gone past the edges of the canvas. Now we have a rectangular canvas which wasn't visible, the edge wasn't visible before, but now you can see that it's somewhere in the middle of the screen like this, and it has a size. We can actually make it bigger, but we won't do that today. We'll come back to that. Let's bring our circle back to a normal size. Now let's look at another instruction. So that was drawing a yellow circle, and it would be nice to be able to change the colour of the circle. And the instruction, the second instruction you're going to learn is called fill. Fill. For fill colour, filling it with ink, filling it with paint. And you can see out of habit that I've put those brackets ready to take some information, and I've, a good habit, put a semicolon on the end just to make sure I don't forget that. Programmers, people who write code, no matter how experienced they are, rarely write code that works the first time. We always make mistakes and errors, and one of the errors is not putting a semicolon on the end, or not putting the end bracket when you opened one, these kinds of errors. Okay, so we've got a fill instruction and we want to give it a colour to fill the circle with, and we can choose a colour like, I don't know, red. We've put it in speech marks because it's a named colour. We'll come to that later, but for now we can use this instruction fill, pass it some information, red, and hopefully that will create a red circle. Let's try it. Yep, a red circle. Ta-da! What about green? Whoops. Green. Let's try that. Yep, green. Bit dark. I wonder if there's a colour called light green. There is. Pink. I will stop. Pink, a pink circle. Where are these colours coming from? Well, there's a list of colours known as the web colours, or if you're a little bit more technical, called the CSS colours. And those colours have names, and we can use those names. So if I go to Google and search for CSS colours, web colours, and there's a website called the W3 Schools. It's a very great, it's a really good reference site for coding on the web, and that's got a great web page showing lots of colours called the CSS colours. And you can see the colours, and they have some codes, we don't have to worry about that, but they've got colour names. So you can see black is black, this colour here is blanched almond, very posh. There's chocolate, and there's dark blue, and so on. There's quite a lot there to choose from. You can actually mix your own colours, so you can get exactly the precise colour you want. But here is a list of ready-made colours, and there's quite a lot of them. Let's pick one from here. Let's say orchid. That's quite a nice colour, isn't it? Orchid. So let's go back here to our code and type orchid and see if that picks the right colour. What was it again? Orchid was this lovely shade that's not quite as dark as purple. So let's run that. Brilliant, that works. So have a go yourselves, picking colours for circles, and you might find some nice colours that you like. So we'll do one more thing before we finish this video, we're going to get a little bit more fancy, and what we're going to do is see what happens if we use more than one circle instruction. So circle 400, 300. Let's say I've chosen a slightly smaller circle here. What do you think's going to happen? So let's think about it. There's a circle instruction that says in the middle of the canvas draw a circle of size 300, and this one says draw a circle in the middle of the canvas of size 200. In fact, let's go crazy and add a third one in, because we are crazy like that. 100. Well, if you think about it, you might guess that this draws 3 circles, drawing the first circle, which is big, then a slightly smaller one on top of that, and then an even smaller one on top of that. Let's run that to see. Yep, 3 circles, with the larger one of size 300, 200, 100. It's rather cool, isn't it? Have a go yourselves, try different sizes. I'm going to combine everything we've done today. We've learnt about drawing circles and circles of different sizes, and we've learnt about picking colours. So I'm going to combine all that new knowledge and use it all to create a different composition. So let's say pink for that fill instruction. I'm going to use, I don't know, let's say green, and over here for the third one I'm going to say let's say cyan, just to see what happens. Now you can think about, let's have a think about what this does. We're saying we want the fill colour to be pink, then we're saying draw a circle, then we're saying we want the fill colour to be green and draw a circle. So that means the second circle will be filled with the most recent choice of fill colour, which is green. It won't be pink because we've changed it here. And then we're saying fill with cyan and draw a smaller circle. So these should be 3 circles with different colours. And you've probably worked out that these instructions are carried out in order. So this one first, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, and then we're done. So everything inside draw is run, the commands are carried out, the instructions, in order from top to bottom. So let's have a look. That's interesting. Yeah. That green's rather dark. I'm going to try light green just to see. That's much better. I like that. Well, fantastic. So just to recap what we've learnt today, we've learnt about logging back into Open Processing with our email that we set up last time. We worked out how to set up our code using the simple library that I've written, and working out how to select it using Open Processing's list on the right hand side here, so you can see it's picked, and we can close it there. We can get rid of that. The other thing we learnt was that the setup section sets up the environment in which we're going to work. We didn't really explore that today because we're using this simple instruction to do all that for us. And the most important things we learned today was the circle instruction for drawing circles, and we learned about the fill instruction for picking the colour that we fill those circles with. And as a kind of a bit of an extra bonus, we saw how different instructions, we can have several instructions and each one is run. So we have 3 circle instructions and 3 circles are drawn, and the instructions are carried out in order. Whew, that sounds like quite a lot for a second video. So the best thing to do is have a go yourselves. There's just two instructions there that we've picked up today, and you can do quite a lot with them. And if you're feeling very brave, try changing the other numbers just to see what happens. I might change that one there just to see, and we'll talk about what those numbers do next time. There, isn't that interesting? Have a think. Okay, we'll see you next time.